Morning. It's a couple of days later. Didn't do any reading yesterday because I went getting my nails done. I actually went with my mates. I've never been for them done before. And like I've never had a girly friend for like years and years, like since I was in high school. So it was really nice just to go and share that experience with her. But anyway, to get back to reading, we're gonna read Scarlett by CATHY, and that is because it's the next book on my list. The only thing about these nails is that I now cannot itch anything. Like, they don't scratch like a normal nail would, probably because they're not ragged like my normal nails are. But like, now if I have an itch, it's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do about it? Anyway, Scarlett. No, I don't remember anything about this book. She's a naughty kid. She ends up getting sent off to live with like maybe some relatives or something like that. And I think it's in Ireland, because I specifically remember that there is a love interest in this one, and I loved the love interest. For some reason, when I was younger, I had this thing about Irish guys. This was before Niall Horan, well, this was before I even knew Niall Horan existed. I just love books about wayward girls who get sent off in disgrace to live with the family and end up having a romance. I think it's very romantic. Just thought I'd let you know that that's what I'm going to be doing this morning. Hello. I'm only on page 36, but it started out really interesting. So basically, Scarlett lives with her mum. Her dad left a couple of years ago. Her mum was really mad about it, and kind of her anger kind of got passed into Scarlett, and Scarlett was also angry as well, obviously, because her dad had like left for this other woman. Her dad was the one who was giving her like the care at home and was coming to take her to and from school and all her classes and clubs. Her mum was like the business parents, the breadwinner parents. So when Scarlett got left with her mum, she didn't have that same amount of like obviously her mum loves her, but she doesn't love her in the same gentle way that her dad did. And so now she feels very much like she's been left. What? I'm gonna have to go and open the door for the cats. She feels very much like she's been abandoned and left with her mother, who's good at like presents and material things, but not so much like the caregiving side of it. Scarlett started acting up at school and stuff like that because of this anger. Her mum like can't cope. She doesn't know how to cope. She's not a mumsy mum, and so she decides the best thing for Scarlett is to pack her off to her nan's, to her Uncle John's, to different schools, and you know, just try and keep giving her this fresh start and trying to send her away to somebody who maybe can cope with these anger issues she's having. Obviously, this is just making Scarlett feel more unwanted and angrier and angrier, and so her behaviour is getting worse and worse. She's got a tongue piercing, she's dyed her hair red. She's only 12. I must have thought she was like the coolest kid ever for having a tongue piercing when I was younger. It's going to be an interesting one. It's obviously going to be the exploration of the fact that like she's made this picture of her dad in her head and like of this woman that he left her mum for as like these bad people because of how their decisions have affected her life. As the book goes along, I think we're probably going to find out that he's the same dad that he's always been, and he does really care about her. And it's her that's been pushing him away because Scarlett's been expelled from another bloody school, and her mum's said, right, that's it, you're going living with your dad in Ireland. Scarlett is not happy about this, but she doesn't have a choice. And we just got off the plane. She's had her first interaction with her dad, and she's explained a little bit of her backstory. I like these books about these difficult women. I don't know, I always have. Hi. Ready to talk about Scarlett. I took it on holiday with me because I hadn't finished it yet. I'm just going to change out my uniform so no one can stalk me. No one else, anyway. So, if you've been following along, yeah, you probably know it's not been the best fucking, like, year for me, but Jesus Christ. This weekend. Scarlett, yeah, everybody... Right, one thing that I did take issue with. Everybody freaks out over Scarlett's tongue piercing for some reason. Like, I know she's 12, and I know, like, it is kind of a big deal to get a piercing when you're 12, especially such a sexualised tongue piercing, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. Like, she opens her mouth and her dad sees it, and he's like, oh my God, you need counselling. And it's like, calm down, it is a piercing, my guy. Like, it's a little piece of metal in her tongue. I've always liked stories about difficult girls who, you know, come into this, like, loving, like this unconditionally loving environment, whether that be like Scarlett with her family or like maybe in a romance novel. Scarlett's a really good early example of this. It's actually her stepmom, like completely flips the evil stepmother trope on its head. Her dad like loses faith in her after something happens, and it's actually the stepmom who steps up and says, I believe in you, I believe that it was a mistake and you can carry on and I'm going to help you. There are always going to be setbacks when you're trying to be a better person, especially if the reason that you're such a shit person is like a trauma response, like it is for Scarlett. Obviously her parents divorced when she was so young and it like changed her entire life. She's like justified in her anger, but like the rest of the world has moved on, and so in order for herself to have a happy life, she's got to move on as well. I like the way that even though Scarlett clearly is working out with her dad's family, at the end she does decide to go back to her mum. Knows that that's the relationship that she's got to work on, and that it's not going to get fixed if she's miles away in Ireland. Hi. It's a bit later. You know, Horns is a bit of an undertaking. It's a little bit of heavy reading right now. So I decided to carry on with my CASSIDY vlog thing. Now, the next one on my list is Sundae Girl. I don't really remember a lot about this one, except that I'm pretty sure her dad's an Elvis impersonator, and that's why it's got the pink Cadillac on the front. But that's literally it. Let's get into Sundae Girl. To work, and I did do a bit of reading, but do you know what I discovered? When we were on lockdown, CASSIDY actually went on her YouTube channel, and she would like come on like a couple of days a week and read a chapter from one of her books, and she read the entirety of Sundae Girl. So I did a little bit of listening to that, and I just love listening to an author read their own story, because like they know exactly what they meant when they said stuff, and they can put like inflections in exactly the right place and stuff like that. Sundae Girl actually seems to be a little bit sadder and a little more realist than CASSIDY's other books. I feel like with her other books there was this always like a wall between like the kids and the dark stuff that's going on, because he wasn't really aware that her mum had kidnapped her. Indigo didn't know that her mum was getting hit. She only kind of found out about it after. In Driftwood there was all this awful stuff going on, but it was happening to someone who wasn't the main character. So there was always this like sense of like removal from the dark stuff. I feel like this one's a little bit more realist. We're very much just set in Jude's everyday life. Doesn't really seem to be any kind of like dramatic adventure that's happening for the story to centre around. Her parents are divorced, and she's only just recently found out that her parents are divorced because her mum got like postnatal depression and ended up becoming an alcoholic. She sees that like her mum's unhappy, that she's obviously ruined her relationship with her dad. Her dad's moved on and found a new relationship. And when she lives with her mum, the house is a bit of a mess, because obviously her mum's not got the capacity to like be a mumsy person. And so the gran, her mum's mum, used to look after everyone, but now the gran's got Alzheimer's. She doesn't know what's going on half the time, and like, so obviously she can't look after everyone the way that she used to. So Jude's life feels like it's in a bit of a mess right now, and I can relate. Not really anything too nuts or fantastical going on in this one. It's just the fact that obviously her dad's an Elvis impersonator, so she's kind of got all this crazy stuff going on around her, but Jude finds it stressful, so that's kind of the vibe that you get from the whole thing, as opposed to it being, oh, look at this quirky family that you can fantasize that you can be a part of. Jude recognizes that although it may look quirky from the outside, she's living in hell. No, she's not living in hell. She's not living in hell. She's fine. I'm projecting. I do that a lot. I'll go and get back to reading now. Bye. I've read a bit more of Sundae Girl. Do you know, it's right up my street, you know. The main girl, Jude, she's like really embarrassed of her family, and especially because like her mum's got a drinking problem. Like tries to keep her family like separate from the rest of her life, and it stops her from getting close to people. Like she has like friends, but like she doesn't invite them to the house because she's scared in case they ever find out and they like laugh at her. And it's for this reason that she keeps rejecting the advances of the boy in the book, Kevin Carter, who's like the most persistent like love interest and the most like romantic love interest we've had so far. I really like him. I really like the scene where he phones her up. She's like said something about some other girl, and he's like, she's not my type, and she's like, what is your type? And then he just describes her, but he says skinny, and she's like, skinny? And he's like, yeah, definitely. I'm like, why has this fictional 12-year-old got more game than all of the men in my life? Hi, I'm gonna update you on the plot of Sundae Girl, because it's just got really heavy out of nowhere. Jude's dad and his girlfriend Victoria are getting married, and it's an Elvis-themed wedding. Mum's drinking problem is getting worse and worse, and you know, she doesn't go to her job anymore. Her and her boyfriend break up, even though he seemed like he was this like really loyal guy who would like stick around even though we knew about her problems. It came down to it, and he didn't want to sit around and watch the woman he loved drink herself to death, and he had the choice to walk away, unlike Jude, who's this woman's daughter. It's very heavy. Jude is meant to be going to this wedding, and her mum comes and picks her up instead of her granddad, and she's like, I'm the one who's going to take you to the station. And then she goes all the way to the wedding with her, nearly has Jude completely oversleep for the wedding, and then turns up with the dog at the wedding ceremony to like crash the wedding. Everybody forgives her. Everybody like knows she's got a problem and they're mad and stuff, but it's like, we just want to help you. Anyway, on our way back from the wedding, Mum decides we're going to go on an adventure. We're going to go to Glasgow and see my friend who lives up there and owns a pub. And that's been a whole mess. And while they've been there, the grandma has had a stroke, and like the granddad didn't know where the mum and Jude were. Like, it's all just completely exploded. Some stuff I wanted to talk about before the narrative moved along too much was there was this like antagonist character called Christina Kowalski. She's like this mystery girl who all the lads like at school, and she like acts like a bit of a bitch towards Jude. And it turns out she's so cold and distant towards everybody because she's got her own family secrets to hide. Her older brother has learning difficulties of some kind, and he has to go to like a special school and stuff. We don't really get too much detail about it. Jude ends up finding this out by accident. Two of them kind of had a bonding experience, and this is something that I love in books, where like two girls start out as enemies and turn out to be really good friends by the end. The other thing is this loyal boyfriend that the mum had. It's kind of this parallel in that like, so the mum doesn't treat this boyfriend Giovanni very well. She kind of says, oh, he's okay for now, but he's not the one and stuff like that, even though he's a perfectly nice guy. She just doesn't have a lot of respect for him because he's like an ice cream man, and so he's got like this side hustle where he washes dishes at a restaurant, because obviously I imagine you don't get a lot of money as an ice cream man. And I think she feels like she's destined for greater things because she had like a past in like show business. She just never really had this respect for Giovanni, and she never really took him very seriously. And when she loses him, she loses like what she thinks of as her main support system, because she's like one of these girls who very much values a romantic relationship, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that like she doesn't really see the support she gets from her family as real support, because your family is supposed to support you, whereas like a boyfriend, a girlfriend, they choose to support you, right? There's a parallel with like the way that Jude treats people in her life. Like, she pushed away all her childhood friends when her mum started drinking because she was embarrassed and didn't want people to know. And obviously she's pushing away this boy Carter because she doesn't want him to get too close and to like know all of these secret shameful things about her. And hopefully by the end of the book she realizes that this is the thing that, you know, caused her mum to lose Giovanni, and so she'll warm up to Carter a little bit. Another thing that I think is handled quite well in this book is Jude feels sorry for her mum and she wants to help her mum, and she loves her mum so much, but she's also really ashamed of her and like angry with her, because obviously in a child's mind it's easy to quit drinking, right? You just stop doing it. They don't understand like vices and things like that really at that age. This like exploration of like the nastier feelings that you might have towards someone with an addiction problem in this book, which is like, it's an uncomfortable thing to discuss, but it is real, and it is something that kids with these problems will be experiencing, so it is important to get that out there. Currently on our way to the hospital to see how Gran is. Hopefully she's gonna be okay, because this book has been pretty heavy and I don't think we can deal with the death at the end of it, to be honest. I'll update you on that when I get to it. Hey again. I finished Sundae Girl. Unfortunately, Nan did die. It was sad. Like, I listened to Kathy Cassidy read the funeral scene while I was busy doing something else, and nearly cried. I've been very emotional recently, but it's funny how funerals and books tend to bring families together. And I know that a death in the family can bring a family closer, but you know, that's not always the case. And I also feel like it's kind of just a little bit cliche, right? That someone dies and it makes everybody forget all the problems and come together to support each other. But it's a nice way to round off what has been quite a dark little book. Mum got her boyfriend back. She started going to meetings and stuff. And then once she was through all her counselling, she started to be a counsellor for people struggling with alcohol addiction. So that was nice. All that was just kind of wrapped up neatly in the last chapter, and it was set months in the future. See that this recovery wasn't just like an instantaneous thing. And of course, Jude and Carter ended up together, even though Jude wasn't completely ready to admit that they were going out yet. But I think it had kind of become a joke between the two of them almost at this point, and it is very obvious that, you know, she cares about him and things. So she's definitely not pushing him away to the level that she has been throughout the rest of the book. So it looks like it's turned out to be a pretty happy ending for Jude, which is nice. The next book is actually, it was one of my favorites when I was younger. Like, I used to read it over and over again, and that is Lucky Star. Lucky Star actually follows the story of Mouse, who was the younger kid from Dizzy, the first book by Kathy Cassidy that we read, when he's a little bit older and, you know, dealing with being back at home with his mum, I believe. The thing that I remember really loving about this book was the romance between Mouse and this girl called Kat. And I can't really remember anything about it except that it involves a stray dog, maybe. Probably start Lucky Star before I go to bed tonight, so I may or may not be back. It's the next day and I've not started Lucky Star yet. However, it's a fucking mess. I have just woke up, don't question me. I forgot to talk about religion in Sundae Girl. But to have religion feature so prominently in this tweeny book, right? Kids aren't bothered about like God and Jesus and stuff. But like Jude visits this church, and like there's this big miracles theme. There's a few things that happen throughout the book that are very like closely linked with like the Bible and biblical miracles and stuff like that, and like religious beliefs. A bird dies earlier in the narrative, and then when Gran dies, the same type of bird lands on a coffin. This old ancient symbolism of the bird, the butterfly, a representative of the soul leaving earth and ascending up to heaven, etc., etc. Statue of Lady Mary, and supposedly she makes miracles happen. It's at this statue where Jude and Christina Kowalski end up becoming friends. Jude counts as a miracle because her and Christina Kowalski have not been getting along very well up until this point. Put my chain on. I don't feel complete without the chain, you know, like I feel it's probably a bit sad. I feel a bit more secure with the chain. Doesn't exactly match this hoodie though. Should we go and look at Lucky Star? Should we do that? Let's go. Lucky Star I've got in hardback. This one when it was new out, girl. I went to a book signing for Kathy Cassidy when I was about 12. It was my first book signing ever, so I didn't have any idea how book signings worked. And so I thought I could only bring a copy of the new book that was coming out. That's not how book signings work. You can bring as many books as you want as long as you can carry them. I ended up only getting the new book signed, and my friend brought her copy of Lucky Star because we both really liked it, and she got hers signed. And I was like really upset that I didn't get like Ginger Snaps or Lucky Star signed because they were my favourites by her, and as it turned out I didn't really like the new book all that much. As a result, we're all very good. I'm going to make this cup of tea. I'm going to start reading. I've read a bit of Lucky Star, and I thought you might be interested to know. Like, for a hot second there, I thought Kathy Cassidy had encouraged me to break the law, because Mouse in this book is a graffiti artist of sorts. He likes to tag buildings and things with his little mouse tag. But I do believe that it was before I read this book that me and my friends stole some furniture polish out of the garage and went and tagged a wall over the field with it. I think we were quite young when we did that, okay? Juvenile delinquents at its finest. I haven't met Mouse's mum yet, but obviously he is living back with his mum now, not like he was when he was younger. I like the fact that CATHY Cassidy has taken the time not only to give like Mouse a fully rounded storyline, hopefully with a happy ending. I'm sure with a happy ending, right? Also to give like his mum a more rounded character apart from this like just this kind of idea of like a drug addicted person. Give us a lot more scope to explore this topic. And from the way that Mouse talks about his mum, obviously I say I've not met her yet, but from the way that he talks about her, it seems like he really loves her and like she's got, you know, a character now that is aside from her addiction, so that's nice. I used to identify with Kat a lot. She's kind of sheltered and she kind of romanticizes all of the ugly stuff that's going on around Mouse that he's just kind of used to now and a bit sick of, like because he lives on a rough estate and he obviously has a social worker and stuff because of what happened to him when he was a kid. Kat kind of doesn't understand the severity of these things sometimes and she thinks, oh, that's cool because she's just used to boring, mundane and safe. I can identify with that because I had quite a sheltered upbringing myself. Now, as a very troubled and jaded 26-year-old woman, nearly, I identify with Mouse quite a bit. I don't tend to see the good in the world. And so I'm hoping that this little read might help me with that. You know? I've had the weekend off from reading. I had a well-deserved break. No, it's been horrible actually. I've just not really had time. So before I really start getting back into the book, I thought I'd give kind of a synopsis of the plot so far because I haven't really got into much detail. Follow the story from Mouse's perspective. He's got this social worker called Dave, and in Dave's office, he meets this girl called Kat. Kat accidentally runs over this dog, and like it's kind of Mouse's fault. Two of them take this dog to the vet. Mouse ends up taking it home, but it turns out that it's this drug dealer's dog. The dealer gets in trouble at the place where Mouse's mum works, which is like a centre for recovering drug addicts, for trying to sell them drugs. At this stage, it's like the big drug dealer guy has like a vendetta against Mouse and his mum. So what the drug dealer guy does is like he's in prison, but all of his mates set fire to the community centre like for the drug addicts as kind of like a revenge for them snitching or whatever. Mouse and Kat are now rebelling by going out and you know, putting up anti-drug graffiti around. It's funny how I said I thought like as CATHY Cassidy got more comfortable with herself as an author that she might start to explore darker topics. This is by far the darkest book that we've read so far, but from her. There's drugs, there's gangs, there's social services, which is scary. Got kids breaking the law for the greater good, which is like, we saw a little bit of this like rebelling against authority in Driftwood, where like the kids were like really dead set against the uniform code because it was such a useless rule when compared to them having like no bullying policy. Now we see like these kids are full on like going out and breaking the law and like keeping a lookout for the police while they do their illegal activities, but their illegal activities are for the greater good. And I think that this is quite a complex topic for what is essentially a kid's book, right? There's a little bit too much encouragement going on for the law breaking here. At the same time, we have this small exploration of how obviously Mouse had quite like a traumatic childhood. We know all about it from reading about him in Dizzy. The big accident that happened to him, it gave him nightmares. He wasn't willing to like open up and speak to anybody about his feelings, and so the best thing that he can do is just to like bottle them up. This kind of theme here about Mouse being, you know, getting ready to like open up to someone fully, and it just so happens to be Kat, whom he's like falling in love with for the first time. I'm actually just now realizing that this like bottling up feelings theme would be like really good if like young boys were reading CATHY Cassidy books, which I don't know any boys who read, so it'd be pretty difficult for me to ask this of anybody, but they're very geared towards young women. You always see young women reviewing them on the back pages, and the stories up until now have been about young women, but maybe the male protagonist would encourage some boys to pick it up, and as a result, this exploration of, you know, talking about your feelings instead of bottling them up and expressing them angrily, that's a useful thing to be teaching young men, because it's, you know, the opposite of everything else they get taught, really, isn't it? So that's where we're at with the plot as of the minute. I am on the night shift tonight, and so I'm hoping to get a fair bit of reading done. Don't think I'll have finished it by the morning, but I will update you hence. I'm on my way home from the night shift. I did actually do quite a bit of reading, you know. Graffitiing went well, the tagging went well. A lot of the other people in the community like starting to plant flowers. And there's some like copycat graffiti been popping up as well in the estate. I really like the message that CASSIDY is trying to exhibit here, where this like community that people didn't really care about, the people in that community can come together, like take a stand. People can see that they're struggling and that they need help. So things kind of seem like they're going well. And then Scarlett gets off on bail, and he manages to go and, you know, like intimidate all the witnesses apart from Mouse's mum into retracting those statements. He knows that Mouse's mum is not going to give up so easily, and so what he does to her, Kat has arranged a surprise for Mouse. She's tracked down Dizzy and Finn from the book Dizzy, obviously Mouse's childhood friend, and it's this really lovely sweet moment. Also, Dizzy and Finn are together and have been together for most of their lives, which is adorable. While they're all out with Finn and Dizzy, Scully and all his mates come through and like ransack the house, like break all their stuff, throw it over the balcony, pour paint all over the bedsheet. The community actually comes together and helps them clean up the flat, and it's really nice. And Scully even came to get his dog back. Ended up tying this dog up in this like old garage with like no food, no water, and going away to Luton for a few days. So one of Mouse's mates' dads knows about this, even though he's kind of being you know, the kind of keep your head down kind of guy when it comes to Scully and the rest of the drug dealers. He realizes that he can't just let this dog die off in this garage, and so he tells Mouse where the dog is. Nice little exploration of like, sometimes people are good people, but they're not willing to stand up for the great good or like against a higher power, which is what the drug dealers kind of are in this situation. It's hard for Mouse to realise this about this guy, this Jake. Mouse has looked up to him as like a father figure for most of his life. As a father figure, we do see them as quite infallible. To see that he's like weak in the face of these dealers was like difficult for Mouse. There's a bird egg on the floor. I'm nearly home now, so I'm gonna get the kettle on, find some food, and I'll probably keep reading. I finished Lucky Star, and I've also had a bath. So, this chair's falling apart, man. Swear down, we have had these new chairs for the garage, yeah, for like a month max, and they've both completely fallen apart, to be honest. Oh my god, look at my hair. I do genuinely resemble Wurzel Gummidge right now, and you know, I apologise if that offends anybody. Okay, so Lucky Star. Ow! It ended really good. Really did enjoy this one. I think that like there's definitely still up there for me. Ended with them going spray painting like dealers out on all of the dealers' doors. They'd planned it really stupidly on the same night as a police raid of all the dealers' houses. So they end up getting arrested by the police. At this point, when they ring Kat's parents, that Mouse discovers his social worker is not also Kat's social worker, it's Kat's dad. Kat's not this like troubled girl who's on the level. She's some posh bird who he thinks has been like slumming it with him. The worst bit is that like she's also lied about how old she is. Kat told Mouse that she was 14 like him, and she's actually 12. And that's young. That's young to be hanging around with a 14-year-old like Mouse. Like, as much as he is a good kid, he does get himself into some trouble, and they have got arrested for spray painting drug dealers' houses. It's not like these aren't like weed dealers, guys. This is like heroin. Getting this 12-year-old mixed up in some heavy shit And he was already kind of mixed up in it, so like he had to deal with it, but like she was completely not involved. He's a little bit pissed off about the fact that she fucking lied. They don't speak for a while, but they have this cute little reunion at the end. I think probably something that I loved about this book when I was younger was just the fact that it was a romance story told from a boy's perspective, and it was just exciting to think that a boy might be thinking all these romantic things about you one day. That boys are capable of thinking romantic things at all, really. I liked Kat, the fact that she was like mysterious and clearly very sad. I found it a bit weird that Mouse just forgives Kat at the end. I mean, it's like I wasn't there for her when she needed me, because like, yeah, she is a troubled girl who needs to be loved, I guess, but like she did fuck up major with all the lies and shit, so I don't know. That was the last one. That was the last one. That was the end of it.